to get real. Alright, so, my name is Andy from Engage Armament. You may know me from some previous videos. But we're going to start doing some more videos here related to guns and gun laws here in Maryland. We get a lot of questions here that maybe could be sorted out before actually somebody comes into the shop. At least spread some information out there, you know, regarding the new Maryland laws, how to buy a handgun in Maryland, what's legal in Maryland, and all that. And I hope this to be the first of many videos that we end up doing along those same lines. This is Nate. Nate is our sales manager here at Engage Armament. Great guy, also an attorney. So he's going to be here to maybe fill in some of the blanks or anything that I might be missing when we talk about the Maryland HQL today. Maryland HQL stands for Handgun Qualification License. Since 1 October 2013, you've needed this license. And it's an actual physical card. Probably should have had this out before we started. But it's an actual physical card that enables you to buy a handgun. Okay? This card enables you to fill out this application and then wait the 7 days in order to buy a handgun in Maryland. And like I said, this came into effect with the Firearm Safety Act of 2013. So it's been in effect now for about a year and a half, thereabouts. The first thing we'll cover with the HQL is the exemptions. So there are some people out there who are exempted from an HQL. There are a few people, but that'll definitely help out those people. First is going to be if you're a licensed firearms manufacturer. Now that only applies if you're a sole proprietor though. So like here where this company is an LLC, I am not exempted. I actually have to have a card. Okay? But if you're a sole prop and you have an 07 or an 010, you're exempted. Another exemption is law enforcement. If you are active law enforcement or you're retired and in good standing from any agency of the state or federal government, you are exempted. Now the thing with the retired part of that is, let's say you're retired from a department in Virginia, but you live here in Maryland, you are not exempted. You're only exempted if you retired from a federal agency or a Maryland agency, or if you're active law enforcement. The next step is military. Are you active duty, military, or National Guard? You are then exempted. Are you retired, military, National Guard? You're then exempted. So you can just come in and say, hey, I want this. I want this Glock. We'll fill out the application, and you can pick it up in 7 days. The next exemption.
So going back to the active duty, reservists will also be counted as active duty. If you can go active, you are counted in that. It's not just actively in the Army.
All right, that's a good point. So yeah, reservists, you're also, because you can be called up, you're exempted as well. The next one is actually a transactional exception. And that's if you're buying a CNR gun. A CNR gun, of course, is a cure and relic. So if you're buying a gun that's on the CNR list or is 50 years or older, you're then exempted from getting the HQL for that transaction. But if you in turn, next transaction, you end up buying a modern firearm, you're not exempted, you do need the HQL. So let's say you need the HQL. Then, to get the HQL, there's a few different stages. One is training, fingerprinting, and then your application. Okay? The training, there are exemptions to it. The biggest exemption that most people are going to have is going to be, did you own a handgun pre-1 October 2013? So if you own a handgun before 1 October 2013, you're exempted from the training. But you still need your fingerprints, and you still need to submit an application. Right?
So the biggest exemption is going to be whether or not you lawfully own a handgun. That could be a handgun that you owned before October 1st. It could be a handgun that you bought as a curio and relic after the new laws. You can actually go in, purchase a curio and relic Browning high power, let's say, do the paperwork, wait the 8 days, you don't need your HQL. Once you come back, pick it up, you now lawfully own a handgun, and you are exempt from the training. So if you wanted to buy a modern handgun and get your handgun qualification license, all you would have to do is use that handgun as a training exemption now, instead of having to do the 4-hour course.
That's an excellent little end run around this. Buying a CNR handgun first, and then you can use that as the exception. The second one is going to be, were you ever in the military? If If you were ever in the military and received an honorable discharge, let's say you do your 4, you get out, you're exempted from the training. Are there any other exemptions?
Actually, so it's not an exemption to the license itself, but an exemption to having to pay for, get extra set of fingerprints. It's kind of the middle ground between having an exemption to the license and an exemption to the training requirement is if you happen to have a Maryland carry permit. All you do is you log into Maryland State Police's website, you give them your carry permit number, and they'll mail you one of these bad boys for free with your driver's license picture on it. A little bit squished to make you look a little bit skinnier too.
Yeah. And that's a great thing. If you do have a Maryland carry permit, there are a few of us out there. It costs us nothing because we've already submitted our fingerprints, and we've already done a similar application. You just go online, submit it, boom. It's actually what HQL permit exempt.
Yeah.
So that's what I did in order to get mine. The next thing that's required is fingerprinting. So everybody who's getting an HQL requires fingerprinting. Fingerprinting in Maryland, and for HQL, and of course anybody who does carry permits or any of this sort of stuff, it's going to be live scan. A live scan is a digital capture of your fingerprints, and then it goes into a database. Maryland State Police, with a specific serial number that's attached to your fingerprints, can then pull those prints and run a check on it. So there's a ton of different places in Maryland that offer live scan fingerprinting. There's one right down the road from us called American Identity Solutions. They have an office in Rockville. They have an office in Bethesda. But, I mean, if you just, for instance, Google Maryland live scan, you're going to get like 50, 60 places.
You can typically search by zip code. It'll end up giving you a list of hundreds of HQL live scan locations.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for the instructor. So let's say you're not training exempt. Well, then you need to take this class. It's 4.5 hours. I believe there's a live fire portion to it. And there's going to be tons of people who offer this class. There are some local ranges. Every range probably in Maryland is going to offer this class. I know Gilbert's down the road offers it. I know even American Identity Solutions, where they do your fingerprinting, offers it. And there's an entire list actually of all Maryland certified handgun instructors on MSP licensing division's website. So you can pull that up, and there's going to be several hundred people there to go over. Once you complete that class, obviously contact one of those instructors, sign up for the class, take it, you're going to get a certificate, then you're going to get your fingerprints done, boom. You go on License Division's website, and you're going to create an account. In the account, you're going to put all your vitals, so your name, address, all this stuff, and you're going to answer a questionnaire, which is just like the 77R, all the same questions, which are pretty common questions. You'll also, on the left-hand side, choose what kind of permit or what kind of HQL you want. So let's say HQL training exempt. Let's say you're former military. So you do HQL training exempt, go in, input all your vitals, answer all the questions, upload a copy of your DD-214, and submit the application. So there's going to be different choices there. HQL training exempt, HQL permanent exempt, which would fall for people, which would be for people who have carry permits and whatnot. Submit the application. Costs $50 to submit the application. About, what do you say, 2 weeks later?
2 to 4. The MSP tends to send out in batches the physical HQL cards. So 2 to 4 weeks, usually more towards the 2-3 side. Every once in a while you have someone that's waiting full 30 days to get their card in the mail.
Yep. Once you get that, then you can come in, you can buy a handgun, and you fill out the 77R. 77R is quite redundant because you're doing an application, doing training and stuff to get a card in order to fill out the application in order to buy a handgun. So that's the way it's set up. Fill out all this paperwork, which is once again called the 77R. Wait for 7 days, and you can pick up your handgun. So it's a little bit more simple than what it sounds. It is still a terrible pain in the ass, though, and we'll see what happens with the court cases revolving around this. But until it gets overturned, this is the way it is. If you want to get a handgun in Maryland, that's a path you're going to have to go down. Anything else you might want to add?
No, I mean, so in addition to some of the training exemptions that we talked about for the HQL, there are a couple more. You always have the ability to take, or if you've taken a hunter safety course, that could be Maryland, could be any state that Maryland accepts with reciprocity for hunter safety. A lot of people end up doing something like a Texas online hunter safety course. So you'll go to the Texas Department of Public Safety's website, I believe. They'll list who their online vendors are. Watch videos online. It takes about 4 hours also, so it's not like a time saver. You'll end up having to watch videos, answer questions, all that kind of stuff. But there's no classroom component, so it tends to be a little bit cheaper, about $15, $20 versus however much it costs to get the HQL training.
Which might be $100 depending on who you go to.
Yep.
And moreover, you can do that in your house. You know.
Yep.
I mean,
So once you have your training, you can get your HQL, you get a handgun. If you want real training, which is always better than state mandated minimums, you end up being able to train with your gun, learn your system, and be able to kind of better your skills that way instead of using rented or loaned guns.
Absolutely. Yeah, training is super important to anybody who's going to be using a firearm. Even if you want it for home defense, you're not really going to go to the range that often. It's still one of those things. It's like I don't want to just jump out of an airplane without going through a class on what might happen. You know what I mean? So training is obviously a huge and important aspect. But as Nate said, the 4.5-hour class or the 4-hour class probably will not enable you. You can't bring your own. Well, if you already own a gun, you're not bringing your own freaking gun to the class, so you're going to be using whatever they got. So it's always better to train on your own system. Those are the steps you need to go through in order to get an HQL in Maryland. And I hope this video was informative. I hope it answered some people's questions about buying a handgun in Maryland. And we'll be making many more. So thank you for watching.